Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, Donald Trump won the election, and a lot of people before the election made predictions about the election. Some people, like myself, were pretty much dead on accurate about every single minute detail, but still yet a lot of people who once again got the election wrong, and some got it very wrong. And I thought in today's video we'd have some fun and react to the worst election prediction in the 2024 election that I've ever seen, that also happened to be serious and not satirical in any way, shape, or form. Like, this is actually what this individual thought. It's actually a video from The Hill, and you have a guy who I believe is a Trump supporter, and he makes a prediction, and then you have a white liberal woman who makes one of the most absurd election predictions that you could possibly come up with. And I thought we'd have some fun, have a little laugh, and just react to it. How wrong was it? We're about to find out.
Now the moment you've all been waiting for. What are our predictions for who is going to win election night? I'm going to start. Nomiki, I made my electoral map, 270 map yesterday, and here it is on screen, although you can't see the... Oh, there it is. Okay, great. There's the map. So I'm predicting the very narrowest possible win, 270 to 268. Kamala Harris taking it. I'm
Okay, so we're not going to play the full explanation that he gives, because this is not the map we're really reacting to, and the video would just be way too long. But I will say that this is not the worst prediction in the world. It's clear he's hedging his bets. The Hill, there's a lot of conservatives over there that try to really, aim for the, liberal audience's appeal. Maybe that's what he's getting at. But either way, not the worst prediction. He got 3 states wrong. They were the 3 closest states. I could make an argument about how, you could just look at basic trends and certain things like fundamentals about how people don't like the state of affairs and would like to go back to a Donald Trump presidency. Enough, people to change the election in places like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, etc. But overall, not the worst prediction. This is like a hedge your bets type of prediction. A lot of people on the right have gotten PTSD over these like special election results or midterm election results, and you can't compare the two. It's like using preseason football games to predict the Super Bowl. You're talking about some of these elections that have very low turnout, and we've seen polling, and it matched up with exit polling where people were asked, did you vote in 2020 but not 2022? And the people that are like only voting in presidential elections, Donald Trump cleaned up with that demographic, but those who voted only in 2022 is pretty much close to a tie. And the people that vote in every, literal election that they possibly can, they tend to be more liberal just in this current day and age. And maybe that's going to change. Maybe under a Trump presidency, a lot of lower propensity voters are going to be more engaged. Who knows? We'll see. But either way, this is not the prediction we're going to be talking about. We're going to get to the just hilarious prediction in a second. But really quickly, guys, I got to tell you guys about my merch store, because it's back and we're still doing the sale for a limited time. All items, you can buy 2, get 1 free. You can buy 5, get 2 free. And we have all these great new designs. We've got the Unburdened by What Has Been mug with the new election map, the Trump Christmas mug. We got all these great designs and more, including the old designs like this mug right here with the Trump bullet design. And we have all these products and more. We got coffee mugs, ornaments, t-shirts, hoodies, crew neck sweatshirts, long sleeve tees, blankets, posters, wrapping paper, scented candles, and hats. We've got 66 5-star reviews. A lot of people buy the products to support the channel. They end up loving them. I recommend you guys at least just check out the store. You don't have to buy anything, but the link will be in the description and pinned comment down below. So back to the video. We're going to be getting to the prediction.
Okay, so let's show my map. Can we do that? All right. I know.
Here we go. This is what they thought. This is actually what they thought was going to happen. 394 to 144. We had, before the 2020 election, a group of people that we now call the 413ers, because they believe Biden was going to win, every single swing state that you would consider like the Big Seven nowadays. And then you would add Ohio, Iowa, Florida, and Texas on top of that. And that just did not happen. We know that that didn't happen, but so many smug, arrogant people on the left were predicting that. And that's when the polls actually were showing that to be something that's plausible. Now, out of the gate, you have the Democrats coming out. You have this woman who goes on the Hill, and she predicts a 394 electoral vote landslide for Kamala Harris, where somehow Montana is a tilt Republican state, which Trump won by 20 at the end of the day, by the way. And Republicans lose Texas, which Trump won by 14. They would lose Florida, which, again, Trump won by 13. And the party registration data showed 1.3 million net new registrations to the Republicans, ignores the early vote data in Arizona, Nevada, and North Carolina, which is somehow likely blue for some reason, and then Iowa. Iowa gets thrown in there, which, again, her prediction was off by what seems to be like 15 plus points, and it's the whole Ann Selzer poll. It's like people actually bought that. They actually were spoon-feeding the Democrats this notion that they were going to have a landslide. It's honestly somewhat abusive to these people and their mindset, I have to say. You almost want to feel bad about it. You almost want to feel bad about it. But let's continue and let's let her explain herself. Let her give an explanation.
You guys are like, you're
what?
That's his reaction.
Wait,
are you insane?
Let me explain.
Oh my God.
Hear me out. Okay. Again, I made this map 4 minutes
Lean Nebraska as well. Lean Nebraska.
before the show, so I had to very quickly put this together. But there's a bunch of stuff happening. I've been predicting a landslide for at least 3 weeks now. Hear me out. All right.
See, the guy who also predicted Kamala winning understands just how ridiculous this is. Like, clearly he was hedging his bets. He said he didn't even want Kamala to win in the video. But still, it's like, come on, seriously? Like, did people not understand the fundamentals? That people didn't like the economy, that the economy was the number one issue, and that the border was number two. It wasn't 1-6. It wasn't abortion like they tried to claim. Like, maybe it could have been if Donald Trump was perceived to be some radical on the topic, but he's not. Like, people understand where he stands on the issue. So Democrats running on it, like, was it the best thing they could do? Maybe. But it just made for Democrats to be completely deluded into making maps like this.
All right. Okay. So first off, 2016, Donald Trump has a smaller coalition than 2020 and 2016. 2016 was his biggest coalition. He had a lot more older voters at that time. Since then, it's been 8 years. Several folks, older voters, have unfortunately died. Also, COVID.
Okay. Seriously? His coalition was stronger in 2016, she says. He did have a winning coalition in 2016, but he had a bigger coalition in 2020. And if you think two-time Trump voters are going to defect, you're just wrong. And she mentions, I believe up here, she said COVID deaths or something.
COVID deaths. So let's just start with age, right?
Yeah, age. And this is the thing that Democrats have said for a while. Oh, haha, Republicans, you're just going to die out, and your party's going to go the way of the dinosaur. And all the trends that we like will continue, and there's no way that they reverse. And all the trends that are working against us, we're just going to ignore because they'll magically reverse. And that's technically not true. And we see that unfold. And we see that a lot of young people, when they get older, they become more conservative. They get a job, they start paying taxes, they vote more Republican. Whereas a lot of young people that voted for the first time, even this election, voted overwhelmingly Republican, at least compared to years past, that you saw massive shifts in certain age demographics to the right. And it kind of shows that Democrats, if anything, have the problem here, not Republicans. A lot of people that passed away due to COVID deaths, as she mentioned, they were in big cities. Even though they're old, they're probably still not as like Republican as she's trying to make them out to be. If anything, they'd be disproportionately liberal old people that were passing away. So again, it's just not sound analysis. It's laughable.
She is doing far better than any other Democrat since 2000, as I've said before, with older voters. R plus 13 average, Republican plus 13 for those voters over 50, and she is winning with them, especially with women, but also with men. He is only doing well with one demographic, and that is young men under the age of 40 who are the least reliable voters. That's why he's doing the full podcast thing. It's why every Republican, mainstream Republican, is trying to get him to expand his coalition.
Well, he was expanding his coalition, and those people, while they may not be the most reliable voter, enough of them turned out, which is what was needed to pad Donald Trump's margin of victory. And again, she doesn't understand that certain polls may have showed Trump doing bad with seniors, but then again, the same polls showed him doing worse in 2020 among seniors, and those polls were proven wrong. So you think she would learn something, but no, she has not learned anything. She's just assuming that the polls are going to like correct themselves or something, which in many cases they didn't. And they were off by several points. And in some states, they were even worse than they've ever been.
He has a smaller coalition since 2020, since storming the Capitol. And we're seeing that in the exit polls already.
Okay, first of all, there's no exit polls. There were no exit polls at the time this was conducted. So I don't know what she's talking about. Second of all, the whole 1-6 thing, it did not really lose him any voters, because if you looked at the data, he was more popular at the time of the election or leading up to the election than he was in 2020 or 2021. So clearly that was not a deal breaker for most people. Did it lose him? Probably some people. It might have. That doesn't mean they're going to run to the arms of Kamala Harris necessarily. And it's just a liberal fever dream where, 1-6 is going to have all these rural Republicans defect, these lifelong Republicans, even though they've loved Trump for just some reason, they're going to buy the liberal narrative about that, despite not buying the liberal narrative about Access Hollywood or anything during 2020. It never added up. It was never a sound talking point. I never understood it.
People saying things like, yeah, I voted for him in 2020, but January 6th happened.
Anecdotes, by the way.
She is doing exceedingly well, more than in the past, with young women women are the most reliable voters. And in exit polls in some states,
I believe in the actual exit polls, not whatever she's talking about or calling exit polls, she was doing worse with young women compared to what Biden was doing with young women. So again, it's just out of touch, elitist, liberal brain. That's what this is. This is what happens when you operate on that.
She's doubling women to men in these early voting states. It is double the number of women voting for men.
You effectively
double the amount of women voting for men. Clearly, she means doubling the amount of women compared to men voting early. First of all, that was not true. Let's get that out of the way. That was never true. Second of all, in some states, yes, women did outnumber men in the early vote, but the early vote tends to be more Democrat anyways, especially the mail-in vote. And men typically like to procrastinate. Election day is typically far more male, as in male like male or female, not male as in you mail in your vote. But that's something these people just never understood. It's like, yeah, we need more men voting, but a lot of people were panicking about that, even on the right, and it just never was a sound argument to why Trump was not going to win.
I think the poll...
Let me keep going. Okay. Also, polls skew older. The polls have been hyper-corrected, as we know, to reflect 2016 concerns, but they also skew older. And
so were they in 2020 when the polls were more inaccurate in 2020 than they were in 2016? Were they hyper-corrected then, or are they just magically going to hyper-correct themselves come 2024? Like, that's something these people just never answered. They lied. They claim polls like mine were flooding the zone, and it was the number 4 most accurate pollster in the country this election cycle. So, again, complete delusion from these people, just utter delusion.
She is doing not just very well with older voters, but also with younger voters. The only demographic he's doing well with is young men at this point. He took two...
What's the source? The polls? The polls didn't even show that. So what polls is she even referencing? She's just, living in a fantasy land and coming up with numbers that just don't exist. Like, that's what this was. Like, this was never a plausible outcome. Like, there's so many layers of ridiculousness within that prediction, by the way.
2 weeks ago, he was getting a few points from African Americans. That's balanced out to 2020 levels. And then last but not least, a community I have worked for the last 8 years with very deeply, the Puerto Rican community and Latino vote. And I think what happened at Madison Square Garden is going to have a reverberating effect. In Pennsylvania alone, there are 450,000 Puerto Rican voters, 680,000 Latino voters, and right now it seems like she is really pulling them back into her favor. And I think it's all going to come down to Reading, Pennsylvania, where they closed out the election. I'm not saying it's going to be a landslide in some of these states, but
I mean, she basically said it would have been a landslide in Michigan and Wisconsin, which she had going blue by like 10%. But regardless, like, first of all, she said, well, the polls with black voters showed Trump at 2020 levels. Like, they didn't. First of all, they never did. They showed him gaining. And it's true the polls overestimate Republicans with black voters usually, just like they overestimate Democrats with older voters, but that's besides the point. Then she says, oh, because some comedian said a joke at Madison Square Garden that Puerto Ricans are going to vote for Kamala Harris. Well, let's check that out. We'll go to the most Puerto Rican county in the entire country, Osceola County, Florida. It voted Republican, and that was a shift to the right of 15 points, mainly among those Puerto Rican voters, compared to the 2020 election when it already moved right from 2016. Donald Trump with a surprise flip in Osceola County. Not a lot of people thought he would flip it, but he did. And then she talks about Pennsylvania, because it is true you have a lot of Hispanic voters in places like Berks County, Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. Oh, look, Berks moved right by 4 points. Lehigh County, which is where Allentown is, moved right by 5 points. Philadelphia moved right by almost 5 points. And you saw a lot of Puerto Rican parts of New York and New Jersey just zoom right off a cliff. So either way, it's like she just makes this up. Oh, this is what people are going to believe because it's the media narrative, and people don't buy the media narrative anymore. And it's just become so unhinged, and the more unhinged it gets, the less people are buying it. And you're kind of seeing that in real time. And that's why these predictions were just off the wall insane. Yeah, Trump with Hispanic voters, he set a record with pretty much every single Hispanic group as well, including Puerto Ricans. But you're talking about nationwide, he got in the mid-40s. That is unprecedented for a Republican to do. There's never been a Republican that's gotten that total since we've really kept track of that sort of thing.
I agree with you. It's going to come down to Pennsylvania, and that she could win Pennsylvania. That is my prediction. But you have her winning Texas and Florida?
Yeah. Puerto Rican vote.
Okay. I will wear...
First of all, there's not really very many Puerto Ricans in Texas. Second of all, I don't think that the Latinos heard about her outrage on their behalf, because they clearly didn't. And you could look at this here. You could just talk about the Texas. I mean, certain Hispanic counties like Hidalgo County voted Republican for like the first time since the 1890s, if ever. And then you look at the state of Florida. That was, I believe, the biggest shift to the right besides Miami-Dade, which is also very Hispanic. So again, clearly it's just she's out of her mind, basically, when it came down to these predictions. It did not add up. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at the time. It was laughable at the time. It's even more laughable now when you look back at it.
Wear a White Dudes for Harris t-shirt on this show.
Texas was already kind of
she wins Texas and Florida. There is no way on God's green earth that's going to happen.
She said Texas was already in the mix. It was never in the mix. It was never in the mix, by the way. It was never even in the mix for the Senate race, but Democrats thought they might have had an outside chance. But there was not even a single Democrat who was serious on the campaign trail that even thought that Florida or Texas or even Iowa was remotely in play.
That is insane.
The problem with Democrats, and I got a lot
You
of
think the polls are massively wrong in Trump's favor? That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying that they're biased. I think there's a lot of theories about that. I'm saying that they're massively wrong because we are dealing with a 2016, which was 8 years ago, and 2020, which was COVID, where everybody was mailing in their votes, and using off-cycle elections to model off of 2022, which also reflects what I'm saying in terms of coalitions shrinking, women, not just because of...
Well, if you talk about these elections, who do they draw out to the polls? Typically, like your affluent white liberal women, people like this individual on the screen. Like, yeah, those people are going to vote in every special election, but your like average, I guess you would say, blue collar individual who votes Republican or votes for Trump specifically, they're not going to be as likely to turn out for some, I don't know, judgeship or open congressional seat in some district that is probably going to go one way or another anyways. So again, using that to predict a presidential election with 150 plus million people turning out, it never was anything other than malpractice.
Reproductive rights. She's obviously the first woman candidate. He speaks very...
Whoa. What happened to Hillary Clinton? Did she just fade away, or was she a man the whole time or something? I don't know.
Disparagingly of women. But also Texas and Florida, the Democrats just pulled out of those states. I covered the DNC for
Because
years.
they know it's impossible to win them.
No. Well, no, because the model of Democratic Party at the time was very much like, we're not funding state parties anymore. That is a major problem that occurred out of Barack Obama's presidency. They used to fund every single state party. That was the 50-state strategy. Howard Dean popularized that.
And they never used it, though. They never, the 50-state strategy was you go to every state. That was kind of what Donald Trump was doing. He went to California, he went to Madison Square Garden, he went to places people typically don't go, the Bronx, and it did pay certain dividends for him. Like, she's going out there and saying that, oh, because of certain state parties aren't being funded. Like, how exactly, wouldn't that mean that they would do worse in those states if they're not putting resources in? And does she believe that they're somehow doing so well that they're pulling out resources? I just don't know. It's insane.
Then they pulled out and they put them all into the DNC for the presidential election because there's more money there. They wanted to put all the money into ads. And as a result, when you don't have a state party, you're going to have a legislature taken over. Arizona became blue in 2006. I worked on that campaign. And then what happened? Barack Obama gets elected. They pull the funding from the state party, and he replaces the governor, Napolitano, and a Republican wins the governorship of Arizona. So we actually were blue in 2006. But when Democrats don't fund their parties, yeah, Republicans are going to win. So now we have an opportunity to invest in these states.
So they're funding the parties, but they're not funding the parties. But like, what is she getting at? It's a word salad. It's Kamala Harris. That's why she thought she would win. She was so relatable to her that she extrapolated that into rural Iowa. I guess this is what she thinks Iowa's like or something. Like, that's not true. Okay, it's not true. But I mean, it's ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous. These people were proven so wrong. They were proven so wrong. Let's see if there's anything left here.
After the midterms, which were not as good for Republicans as expected, and that has affected how I draw my map here. But the bright spot for them was Florida. Ron DeSantis crushed it. It has been turned into such a red state.
Fight for 15, Planned Parenthood was on the ballot, and Democrats won with those issues.
No way on earth.
Nostradamus, Nostradamus, that's what you can call me.
Yeah, that's Nomiki Stradamus. I got it.
Nostradamus.
All right. Well,
yeah, and more like Nostradamus, because she was wildly wrong. How many states did she get wrong? I think she got 8, 9, 10 states wrong. How do you get 10 states wrong when you predict an election? Like, you have to massively screw up, like beyond repair, to get 10 states wrong. But that's exactly what she did, and her margins in some of the states were even more absurd. But that's pretty much it, guys. Just thought we'd have a laugh and kind of just react to one of the worst predictions I've ever seen in my life. But anyways, guys, make sure you guys like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are going to be all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.